policy news that you wanted to know. It's breaking news amidst a raging debate on a second term for Raghuram Rajan as RBI Governor. Exclusive information. Supriya Srinath has gotten this from top government sources. Supriya, what are you picking up?
What I'm essentially picking up should be music to the ears of investors, industry and a lot of market participants who've all rooted for RBI Governor's second term. And we've been given to understand by the most highly placed sources in the Finance Ministry and also in the PMO, if I'm putting my neck out on this one and saying so, that Raghuram Rajan is likely to be given an extension for a second term when his term does expire on the 4th of September this year. Remember, there was a raging debate. There were allegations made by Subramanian Swamy. This issue has been out in the public debate. Opinion widely in favor and majority of the opinion in favor of the RBI Governor's extension, and we given to understand that he's likely to be given an extension. He took charge, remember, on the 4th of September 2013 as the 23rd RBI Governor. There was a lot of allegation, there was a lot of charges that were leveled by Subramanian Swamy, but I think all of those will find no favor with the government because we've been given to understand that he is likely to be given an extension when his term does expire on the 4th of September. So that is big breaking news right here on the channel, because there were many doubts that were raised that Subramanian Swamy is close to the RSS. Is he speaking the ideologue's language? Is he being the ideologue's mouthpiece on this? Will the government perhaps be jittery on giving the RBI Governor an extension? But all of that finds no favor, because strictly speaking, on economic and rational terms, he should have been given an extension, and we given to understand that he indeed will be.
Priya, you know, yesterday I heard you quizzing him at the credit policy day as well, and a lot of people believe that there were, at least there were reports that there is some reluctance on the part of Raghuram Rajan himself regarding his second term. What about those?
No, I think those are all baseless. We've been in touch with the Prime Minister's office on this one. We've been picking up information from there, and they all believe that those were rumored reports. Those reports do not find any favor with the government, at least. They believe that this is baseless. He has not communicated, and in fact, on the record, if you can go back to the clip that he said, I have written no letters, and he was essentially referring to writing a letter of refusal or reluctance to a second term. So he has said on record, I have written no letters. And issues like these are not discussed verbally between the government on one hand and the governor on the other. There is a communication channel that is established, and he's written no letters whatsoever. So on the record, we have the RBI governor saying he's written no letters. We've also been given to understand by the government that there is a section within the government and the most highly placed section, which is the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, who want continuity at the RBI amidst this crisis right now. There is a banking NPMS, there is inflation that could rear its ugly head again, financial inclusion, changing the whole landscape of banking, getting all these new banks to bank in India. So given all of that, they want continuity, and amidst that continuity, this whole report and this whole rumor that started that he was reluctant to any sort of an extension is obviously baseless. He came to India, he quit his, he put his job on hold in the US. He came to India to finish an agenda, and I think that agenda is largely unfinished now and will be unfinished by the 4th of September when his term expires. So if I know Raghuram Rajan well, and I think with some amount of modesty, I can say that I now have some amount of access to the man that he is. I don't think he would have had an issue, but at least from the government side, there is nothing that has been communicated from his part. They say it is rumored, it is baseless, and it's not as if he's communicated anything to the government. We also have him on the record saying that he hasn't written a letter of communication denying or not wanting an extension whatsoever.
Quite frankly, let me qualify. I think this is the biggest policy news break in the month, possibly for the year as well. Supriya Srinath getting us to this news live and exclusive. Supriya, my question to you is thus this. By when do you reckon the decision on this is likely to be officially made?
So, Neeraj, decisions like these should be actually made early, but I'm given to understand that a final call on this will be taken only closer to when his term expires. So I'm expecting a call to be taken by August, mid-August to end of August. They wouldn't want to hang on till the last day. A mistake that they made with the SEBI chairman's term. They announced an extension of his term 2 days before his term had to expire. But I don't think they will make that mistake, simply because Raghuram Rajan is not another bureaucrat in that job. Look at the backlash a possible end of his tenure has created, with the biggest stalwarts in the financial and the market space essentially stating on record that he should be given an extension. There could be a mass exodus of capital. He's got enough credibility there. He studied and steered the Indian economy very well. Of course, in cognizance with the finance ministry here, and which is why he should be given an extension. So I'm given to understand that the decision will be taken closer to the term of to the end of his term, which is going to be around August. Ideally, that decision should have been taken earlier, but that's how New Delhi works. I think the decision is going to be taken around August. So there could be a lot of debate that will rage on, but just to set the record straight, we have this information from the most highly placed sources in the government that he is likely to be given an extension, and that should bring some amount of sanity, should soothe some frayed nerves out there in Indian markets and the investor community.
You know, stories of this nature move the markets, and I dare say, again, with a limited amount of modesty, that I think it is getting some bit of excitement in the banking space. There could well be some excitement on the currency markets as well, and the bond markets too. This is really big as it gets. And though, you know, and I'm sure Maithili is there, I want to ask her as well with her opinion. But Supriya, I know I've tagged you enough with questions, but I just have one more, Supriya. And that is that a select section of the government, and not just Swami alone, was believed to be not in favor of this happening. Now, I know you will say that this question is redundant, but I'm still asking you, can things change between now and the D-Day?
No, I agree with you, and I think it's a good question that you're asking me, that can things change? Things are dynamic and things keep changing every day in New Delhi, but I think on this one, there will be a consensus right at the top of policy making. I mean, yes, there is no, you know, it is out in the open, it's an open secret that sections of the party, sections of RSS, along with Subramanian Swamy, are not in favor of RBI Governor. They find him too alien, too foreign to be the RBI Governor, but I think people in decision-making capacity, people he interacts with, people he has to do business within the government, and that is primarily the finance minister and the prime minister, believe he's done a good job, he's a credible man, and which is why I think an extension will come along. Yes, there will be this debate, there will be more written letters by Subramanian Swamy. I don't think I don't think the loose cannon as he is can be tamed right now. There may be more voices from the Swadeshi lobby that may come up, but I think when the time comes to take a decision, it will be a prudent call that will be taken, because remember one thing, both the finance minister and the prime minister are men who take prudent economic calls. They haven't taken an irrational or a reckless economic decision so far. And this one could be suicidal. Look at the kind of, and I'm going to go back and sound repetitive on this one, but look at the kind of backlash it has generated, not just domestically, with domestic industry coming out in the open in favor of him, but international community as well. International finance experts, international market experts, international industry talking about in favor of a second term for the RBI governor. This is unprecedented. And also remember, if he was not to be given an extension, this would be the first of sorts since 1992. Every governor since 1992 has got an extension. So I don't think the government would want to be seen as making an exception as far as Raghuram Rajan is concerned. I know there are lobbies in the government that believe he was a UPA appointee. Why should he be given an extension? But by that logic, SEBI chairman was a UPA appointee as well. He was given an extension. Raghuram Rajan, I think in all probability, is going to get an extension. And also remember, in the past, Y.V. Reddy, like Maithili pointed out yesterday, was an NDA appointee. The UPA stuck along with him. He was known to have his run-ins with P. Chidambaram, then finance minister, but P. Chidambaram chose to call him his economic guru. So, you know, these things I think, and like Swamy pointed out 2 days back on our channel, that repo rate is not a political call, and which is why the call will be to give him an extension. There will of course be noises, there will be this debate, but I think when the time comes, we hope and we keep our fingers crossed, given all the information that we're picking up in New Delhi, that it is going to be a prudent, rational market, investor, economy-driven call.
Thanks for that, Supriya. Thanks a lot for that. I would request you to stay on, because we'll, I'm sure, get a battery of guests to speak about this as well. And remember, I think a lot of people will say, ye to hona hi tha, but the thing is, we're getting you exclusive information that the government is likely to offer the extension, and the PM and the FM are keen for this to happen. Maithili, Supriya was referring to your comments that you made yesterday as well. Your initial thoughts. In all likelihood, Supriya is learning that there is going to be an extension for Raghuram Rajan.
Anything anything that ends uncertainty is always good for the markets, because markets dislike uncertainty most of all. But having said that, it is very important that the government comes out with a formal announcement, because until government makes a formal announcement, markets will always take such news, however reliable they are from Supriya. She's never kind of given out a wrong story, so I'm sure it is a very reliable source that she has spoken to. So, but markets will always go by government's official announcement. So it is good that if government were to come out with an official announcement one way or the other, sooner rather than later, because let's not forget that this is the very first time that the appointment or the extension of a central bank governor, the Reserve Bank of India governor, has given rise to so much controversy. We've had all kinds of people giving all kinds of views from one extreme to the other. And this is a decision which essentially has to be based on let the best man win. The most meritorious person should become the RBI governor, because at the end of the day, even though the RBI is not independent in law, we've had a series of successive governors who've ensured that the RBI is largely independent in its operations. So it should always be the best man, the man who best fits the bill, who's able to take an independent decision without being moved by political pressure. So I think it's important that the government takes a decision sooner rather than later, and it's also important that such decisions are not taken, not guided whatsoever by public voice.
Yep.
Because this is a technical area, very few people really understand the intricacies of monetary policy or banking supervision. So this is something that the government should decide purely on merits.
Right.
And this is why I think it's important that such decisions are not debated in public. They never are, and I think the government should ensure that to prevent that, to ensure that doesn't happen in future as well, they need to come out with a decision, whichever way, one way or the other.
Yep.
As for his agenda, whether it is 3 years or 5 years, the kind of reforms that the governor is attempting will take a long time. So even if he is given an additional 2 or 3 years, this agenda will go on. And I think that has been the broad program of the government also, because we've seen regardless of which government comes to power, reforms has continued. So whatever the governor has started is definitely likely to continue. He set himself a very ambitious wish list, and he's done quite well so far. So perhaps he needs some more time.
Yes.
But having said that, I think it is an ongoing plan.
Of course.
At the end of the day, I come back to my same point that the government needs to end all doubt by coming out with a very clear announcement, one way or the other, and sooner rather than later is best for the markets.
Yeah, true. And Maithili, I'm sure it's an exhaustive, complete roundup by Maithili. Let me get in our other experts on board. I'm sure Supriya has a question or two as well. But Aditi Nair, your first thoughts, and my question to you is, okay, I think we have Jahangir Aziz on the line as well. And Jahangir, my initial question to you is, how do you think, I know the answer is that they will take it positively, but how positively could this be taken if indeed the government comes out with a formal announcement sooner rather than later that there is a second term? We at ET now learn that it is almost certain that it is going to happen.
When all this uncertainty came up on the face of it, I think the situation at that point was that there was a lot of faith among investors that the governor would continue in office, and based on that, they had made investment decisions not just in the last 6 months, but probably about a year back. So I think the concern was that if there were the investors were disappointed, you would see capital outflows taking place, so that the delta from not being reappointment was seen in the market as negative. I think that negative thing goes away. That does not mean that you're going to see a flood of new capital coming in, because that was never in the first place the concern of the investors. Investors weren't saying that, I'm sitting on the sideline waiting for this appointment to be fixed before I come into India. That was never the case.
Jahangir, this is Supriya Srinath from New Delhi, and I must ask you this question because this is information that we're picking up from highly placed sources in the government, that both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, despite given the voices of noise and cacophony around, are in favor of an extension, and he will indeed be given one. In fact, all the rumors about him being reluctant for a second term are also baseless, is what we've been given to understand by the Prime Minister's office and our sources there. My question to you is more technical. The fact that India is amidst an NPA mess of sorts, Indian banking system, at least the public sector banks are facing huge mounting crisis there. Inflation, by all accords by the RBI policy yesterday, is threatening to raise its ugly head once again. And of course, Janet Yellen, though she was far more dovish yesterday, but the imminent and the inevitable rate hike in the United States, these are the big three crises that any incumbent at the RBI will have to face, and which is why many people here in New Delhi are beginning to say that Raghuram Rajan is the right man for that job. I want to quiz you on those three issues and why you believe it's important that there is continuity at the RBI and Raghuram Rajan does get to keep his job.
Well, Supriya, I mean, sometime back, the similar question was asked to me, and I said, look, people might have different views about the governor, et cetera, et cetera, but I don't think economic reality will allow the government, even if it wished to have a new governor appointed at this point in time. And all the things, that arguments that you have made is part of that economic reality, that things in the next 6-9 months will become much more difficult to navigate. The fact that we've gone through about 4 or 5 months of very low volatility and globally, driven largely by a very benign view on the US dollar, shouldn't make us feel very complacent that global uncertainty has completely been resolved. It can flare up, and that was it. And those are exactly the same arguments that factors that you're pointing out. And I would agree with you that there's one thing to talk about politics or people's own personal prejudices, etc., and it's a completely different thing to talk about what economic reality forces you to do.
Oh, that's absolutely right. It is going to be a difficult landscape to navigate through as the next few months approach, and given the points that you made. I have a very quick question to ask of you as far as the government is concerned. We have been given to understand that a final decision on this will be taken closer to the end of his term, which is around August. Wouldn't you have wanted the uncertainty to end now? The government, like Maitri was pointing out there, to come out in the open and say, here's a decision that has been made, because we've seen a precedence of sorts with the SEBI chairman's role. The announcement came in 2 days before his term expired. Ideally, markets like certainty. Yes, we're putting out this information and banking counters are reacting to it, and this seems to be good news. They want the man who's done a good job to stay on. But the question really is, shouldn't the government end the uncertainty and announce it sooner than letting it linger on till the end?
Well, no, obviously. I mean, I'm probably sounding like a broken record now, having said this thing several times, that in a world where uncertainty is growing or there is looming uncertainty in the horizon, I think the right role of the government is to calm people down and hold hands of investors in this case. And the right thing would be to end this uncertainty and make a decision and let the markets then, calm down and react to economic fundamentals rather than this enormous amount of noise that have been created around this appointment.
Right. Jahangir, just hold your thoughts there, because I want to keep coming back to you, and not just for the reason that you understand Indian economy and Indian finance very well, but you also do understand the man Raghuram Rajan very well. I'm given to understand we have the former banking secretary, Mr. D.K. Mittal, on the phone line with us, somebody who's had his fingers in the pie as far as the RBI and the whole banking landscape is concerned. This is an important decision that the government was likely to make. We've been given to understand by highly placed sources that this decision will be in favor of an extension. Mr. Mittal, your first thoughts on that? You've been the banking secretary, you've also been a representative of the government on the RBI's board. I want to understand from you, how important is continuity of Raghuram Rajan's term at this stage?
I think it is extremely important for us to have the continuity of Governor RBI, and the government has a track record of doing that. And let me also make it clear that this news that the term will not be extended has been put out of proportion in the media. So it is doing a great disservice to the nation when we are repeatedly saying that whether term will be extended or not. Nobody has said from the government that we will not extend the term. And government has a practice that it is decided a week or 15 days before. This appointment is done only by the finance minister and the prime minister. Nobody else is involved into this. So I think this issue has been blown out of proportion. And I'm confident that Dr. Rajan would have extended tenure. There's absolutely no issue on that.
That's a very valid argument that you're making, that this decision will be taken only at the highest level and all the cacophony and noise around the extension will perhaps find no favor. The decision will be taken by two men alone, and that's my information as well, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. You are someone who has access to how decisions happen in New Delhi, and which is perhaps why you're pointing that out, sir. But as a bureaucrat, as a career bureaucrat, wouldn't you want, because of the nature of this debate, the kind of backlash that we are seeing, the kind of articles and editorials that are being written, the kind of noises that we are seeing from the international community as well on this one, about a possible exodus of capital and all of that, wouldn't you have rather preferred the government to take a call now and announce it that yes, the RBI governor is going to get a term, these noises notwithstanding? I mean, why let the uncertainty linger on?
No, what you are saying is one of the possible ways, but you have to kindly appreciate that in government things become very difficult. You know, the personalities start getting involved when you have to break any standard method which is decided and set up in the government. Unless there is a crisis, the government will like to go by the method what they have been doing it. And nobody from the government has spoken ill of Dr. Rajan. Nobody. There's only somebody is speaking, and that has been picked up as if he is speaking for the government, which is unfortunate. Everybody has a view to make on anybody, and we have all passed through the test. But the fact remains that Dr. Rajan is an extremely, competent person. I'm not certified, but that's what everybody says. And he's an accomplished economist on the subject, so there's no reason for us to believe that he'll not be there. There's absolutely no reason. So this issue is being put out of proportion for what reason? And this is doing a great disservice to the reputation of Dr. Rajan when somebody says he should be appointed. Well, Dr. Rajan is not a beggar. So why are we saying that? He deserves. He was invited. He's not come on his own. He was invited to come to India. So I think we should respect that aspect.
Well, that's true. Any case, I just want to quickly mark what the equity markets are doing as a result of this or otherwise. The banks took a bit of an uptick when we flashed this piece of news, and I think the banking stocks got a bit excited. I think the currency too, for a little minute bit, did get excited. Remember, there are lots of other forces moving the currency, but I think this news is important had this not happened. And of course, it's still not a done deal as yet. It's an ET Now exclusive. We learn that this is going to happen soon. We have a battery of guests waiting for us with us. Shubhda Rao, Aditya Nair has been waiting by patiently as well. And we have Arvind Narayanan also waiting by patiently with us of DBS Bank. Arvind, let me first throw the question at you. Assuming that this is a done deal, you think this is positive for the markets, or do you think this is a no negative, which by itself should be a positive as well for the currency and the bond markets?
Well, I think given the uncertainty over the last couple of weeks on this news, I think getting a confirmation on either side, yes or a no, would actually be a relief to the market. And if it's actually a yes, wherein we have a governor who's proved himself and the credentials are strong, and we're going through a period of uncertainty, getting him on a continuity basis would definitely be a positive to the markets. The sentiment is definitely looking good if this is true.
All right, Arvind, like Neeraj was pointing out, a no negative will perhaps be a positive. My larger question to you is the fact that, like Jahangir was pointing out there, we are perhaps going to prevent a mass exodus of capital. It's not as if his extension is going to attract more capital coming in. My question to you largely is the 3 points that we discussed with Jahangir and with Mr. Mittal as well. NPA, inflation, and a possible rate hike from the US Fed, which is going to see capital outflow happen. And, of course, the FCNR that comes up. About all these factors, which one do you think is going to get priority as far as his own extension is concerned? Why should he stay on is really the big question.
I think Rajan's staying on definitely gives relief to India from the perspective that we are facing the FCNR issue coming up in September, October. Plus, external market is going through its own challenges, whether it is the Fed possibility of a rate hike, or you have the Brexit, or you have a general slowdown in Europe and Japan, and you're talking about negative interest rates. So in this kind of a scenario, if you're getting a seasoned campaigner like Rajan choosing to continue, the sentiment definitely becomes positive. The confidence is the fact that the macro indicators for India have improved tremendously over the last 3 years. So anything significantly negative on the external side is something which India can handle if you've got a stable, competent person like Dr. Rajan at the helm. At the same time, I want to make it clear that, look, we're not trying to overemphasize the importance of a single individual. At the end of the day, the RBI is a very capable organization, and there are equally competent individuals out there. But at this point in time, this juncture, if you are getting continuity in terms of the same person choosing to continue, and we are on the threshold of a few big events like the SCNRs and the US dollar rate hikes, etc., it definitely gives a lot more relief to the market. We do not have to worry about any loss in transit or somebody dropping the ball along the way. So that risk gets taken away if the continuity is in place.
Right. Right. Just hold your thoughts there, Arvind, because I appreciate the fact that Aditi has been waiting by very patiently, and just as all of you joined in, I am going to go across to her and ask on this one. Aditi, I'm not going to ask you a market question or an investor question. I'm going to ask you the more economy-related question, macroeconomy, so to say. Yes, Rajan has sometimes been accused of being an inflation warrior, a growth hawk, but an inflation warrior. You know, my question really is, how do you see an extension of his tenure? The fact that yesterday in the RBI policy, there were doubts raised about inflation rearing its ugly head once again. Do you believe that's one of the biggest reasons why he should stay on? Because government understands the political cost of rising prices.
You know, as far as yesterday's policy is concerned, I think it very well articulated the upside risks as well as some of the palliatives that we have ahead of us as far as the inflation trajectory is concerned. And I must say, remarked quite honestly that certainly the downtick that we saw in March and then the sharp uptick that we saw in April for CPI inflation has made forecasting the inflation trajectory a little bit more complicated right now. Again, with the pay commission, exactly when it hits, exactly what the contours are, that is another source of uncertainty that is difficult to really model at this point in time. And the monsoon, of course, we're keenly on monsoon watch to see how things move now that the delayed onset is more than a week. How well is it going to be distributed? How fast is it really going to catch up? So all of these factors are going to be quite important for the inflation trajectory. Having said all of that, I don't think there was anything yesterday in the policy that makes me rule out a rate cut in the August or the October policies. We expected there would be space for a maximum of one more 25 basis points repo rate cut in 2016, because a lot of the factors that the RBI highlighted yesterday are really known factors. I mean, we know that commodity prices are on an uptick. We already know that the monsoon is delayed. So I don't think there was anything in yesterday's policy that really rules out an immediate rate cut. Particularly if things like a well-distributed monsoon are able to significantly cool off food prices, and if the food management continues to keep food prices in check, and the further imports of things like pulses are able to really bring down those inflationary pressures. As far as inflation targeting is concerned, the RBI has already put in place a mechanism, and the credibility of that has been established with inflation coming down over the last couple of years, helped as it was by the global commodity price cycle. And I do think that going ahead at this point in time, of course, the pay commission is a longer term, medium term risk, but we do think that the inflation targeting framework is going to keep the credibility of the RBI and of bringing down inflation in place.
All right, just hold your thoughts, everybody. I've got Anil Singhvi, a man who's understood Indian markets and Indian policy making for very long now. Mr. Singhvi, your first reactions to the exclusive news break right here on ET Now. The RBI governor, despite all the noise and controversy and debate around it, is likely to get an extension, and he's also likely to be keen on one, or at least is going to take one. All the news and reports about his reluctance, according to our government sources, are completely baseless.
I think it's a good news if he continues and the government gives them an extension. I think it will be a good, very good thing for markets, and I think it's good for country as well. And let me dwell for another 10 seconds on that. Why I'm saying it's good? Because in this point in time, I think continuation, when there are so many variables globally on that, there's so much of uncertainty, I think continuation is more important. So I'm not on to just saying about the person, but I'm talking about continuation of a person into a job is a very good thing, and I think we are fortunate to have Dr. Rajan heading as the governor of RBI today. So I think this whole debate the last 2-3 months had taken a very ugly turn, and it was completely uncalled for. I was talking to earlier ET Now, and my views were same exactly. That why are we making so much of noise about the person, whether he will remain, he will not remain? To look at the background, most governors in India, most governors of RBI in India have got extensions. So what is so great about Dr. Rajan getting or not getting it? There were very few occasions when a person did not get an extension on that. So that's an exception rather than a rule. So I found this whole debate completely intellectually very, very of a bankruptcy level.
Frankly speaking, we were amused with the debate as well, but you know where it emanated from. It emanated from Subramanian Swamy's letters, and thankfully they find no favor with the top policymakers in the government at least. It's a noise, it's a concern, it's an irritant maybe, but it looks like when the time for decision making does come, the top policymakers are going to be making the right call. But I would like to thank each one of you for being with us on this exclusive news break. Over the last half an hour, we've given you the big story of the day or of the week or possibly the month. It's an extension that the markets, investors, industry was watching out for, and we're telling you, putting our neck out months before this happens, that the government is in favor of giving him an extension, and all the reports of his own reluctance are baseless at this stage. So RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan gets to stay on, and this should soothe a lot of frayed nerves. There are many challenges to Indian economy, whether it's NPA, whether it's inflation, whether it's an imminent rate hike from the US Fed, whether it's the rupee, the volatility there. He needs to stay on. Continuity needs to be maintained at RBI, and that is an argument that finds favor with both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. So hopefully good economics is going to prevail over bad politics at this stage. But thanks each one of you for sparing time and sharing your perspective with us right here on ET Now. It's back to Neeraj Shah in the studios to take it forward with the markets.
Supriya. You can be a bit more immodest out there, Supriya. It certainly is the policy news break of the month, if not more. But thanks for getting us that update. That's the really by far the biggest policy news break that I've seen in a while. Here on this very subject, Swaminathan Iyer told ET Now that Governor Rajan's extension will be positive for overall macros as well. Let's hear them out.
Politically, has there been any great pressure saying this guy is wrong for India, let's get rid of him? I don't see that kind of pressure. While I do see criticism from economists, I do not see that this is a major political matter. And I think Modi, therefore, will see that Rajan is a benefit to India politically. Rajan has credibility, more credibility than anybody else. He is seen as having tamed the temper tantrum the taper tantrum of 2013, when it seemed the stock market was collapsing, the rupee was collapsing. He was seen as having a steadying hand, and he steadied the Indian ship when it was in a hurricane. If there is a future hurricane, people look forward to having that same steadying hand. If that steadying hand goes, people will lose confidence. Secondly, if Raghuram Rajan goes at this point, it will almost be a signal to saying that the Subramanian Swamy line is going to win out, in which case there is going to be a depreciation of the rupee and a cut in interest rates. And both of those will lead people to quickly withdraw their money as quickly as they can before the depreciation and the cut in interest rates.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.